Sadly, when it comes to an entire year of horror, not everything is going to work for us. Today, let's talk about 10 horror movies that kinda disappointed me here in 2025. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. If you're excited for upcoming horror flicks just like me, then make sure to like this video and subscribe for more updates, rankings, and reviews. Also, the best way to support this page is by becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter, where you'll get bonus review videos. Patreon supporters even get to see trailer reactions that YouTube won't really allow me to post. Thank you to everyone who keeps me in business. Now let's get into the rankings. Just like in my other list video from Monday where I talked about 10 movies that I felt were underrated from 2025, this list is in no particular order. These are just 10 movies that really did not work for me at all. In fact, I loathe the final film on this list, and that's a strong word, maybe even a stronger word than hate. I loathe it. I think it's a terrible movie, and no one should ever view it. So that last pick, I guess, is a little worse than the rest of these. By the way, on Friday, I'll be talking about my top 10 favorite movies of the entire year. That one will be in order, however. All right, let's get into the first stinker here. Fear Street had a very solid start over on Netflix with that original trilogy from 2021. It was a fun little straight-to-streaming series with some slick stories and gory kills. The fourth movie, Prom Queen, however, was a tad underwhelming. The characters are written so poorly that I can only believe it was done purposefully. I think they wanted to add some extra cheese to this burger because, man, you have some lines that are like, there's no way a human being wrote this and didn't think it was gonna come off as unintentionally funny. For instance, you have this boyfriend character who's talking about his missing girlfriend, and he says, "I've been dating that chick for 2 months. I know her better than anybody." I fucking cackled at that line because that's something that idiot teenager Jake probably would have said. You know what? Maybe this movie was brilliantly written, actually. Seriously though, there's a lot of movies on this list that I think are just boring. This one I still had a very good time with despite the writing not really being all there. The worst thing you can make is a boring movie, and this is definitely not that. The kills here are also super 80s, which is both a compliment and a criticism. You get to see lots of blood, but most slasher fans have likely seen these before. You get one of the classic Jason moves where our slasher villain this time around is throwing someone into a breaker and they get electrocuted. I kind of love that one though. It's a classic. I won't spoil it in case you missed this one, but like, the twist is so obvious, dude. I think anyone can kind of remotely guess where this is going at a certain point. A message to people making slasher films: don't make your movie a whodunit if you don't have a good idea there. Not everything needs to be Scream, it's okay. I guess I'm kind of in the minority here when I say that Five Nights at Freddy's 2 definitely did some things better than the original film, but not by much. I feel like this movie is still very closed off to any newcomers to the franchise and really is only for people who have seen every single game theory video. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 actually did feature some jump scares, unlike the first movie, to capture the haunted house feel of the video game. Some of them even made me jump a little, especially everything they did with that creepy ass marionette puppet. I'm still wondering if that thing is crawling up people's butts or not, though. The sequel still hasn't figured out what to do with its main characters yet, which grinds the film to a screeching halt whenever the animatronics aren't on screen. I got to see this one with Dylan from Splattercast, and I think he put it perfectly when he said that this movie feels like cinematic NyQuil, especially during these dramatic scenes that feel so uninspired. The character decisions especially just do not make any sense, and I just don't think that video game creator Scott Cawthon is a very good screenwriter. It's just not what he does. These movies might succeed because of the scary nuances and Easter eggs laced throughout, but outside of the impressive box office performances, I just don't think these movies are going to age very well because of their really shitty and shoddy stories. I hate to crap all over an indie release, man, but what the hell was going on in Night of the Reaper? What starts off as a cool little Carpenter-inspired slasher with a synth-filled score and Panavision wide shots devolves into convoluted nonsense by its third act. I understand wanting to do something different with your movie, but if that means the product is going to end up significantly worse than what you're emulating, you probably shouldn't do it in the first place. Outside of the twist of this movie making me feel like I wasted my time watching this movie is constantly meandering wandering with this weird little cop plot to distract you from the main story at hand. Like, it's a babysitter, she's watching somebody, and she's being stalked by a slasher outside. But like, there's something else going on the entire time, and it just keeps cutting away from the interesting Carpenter slasher part of this to a really boring subplot about this cop. Most of the movie is about this cop, and I just don't care. Like, imagine if most of Halloween was just about Sheriff Brackett. Not Dr. Loomis and Sheriff Brackett, just Sheriff Brackett. Michael Myers is not walking around killing people. Laurie Strode isn't getting high in her car and saying a bunch of silly shit with her friends. And Dr. Loomis isn't running around spouting off the craziest bullshit you ever heard. Strip those things away from Halloween, what do you have? Not a whole lot. Outside of a pretty decent opening scene and one pretty shocking kill, this is an irredeemable skip. 2025 was a rough year for slashers, and Chapter 2 of the Strangers trilogy was certainly part of the problem. Even though director Renny Harlin promised us that Chapter 2 would dive into some new stuff opposed to the plagiaristic Chapter 1 just copy and pasting elements from the previous two movies, the sequel is a tensionless 90-minute chase scene with occasional expository flashbacks. Is Tamara home? I don't give a fuck, you stupid little kid. I never needed that explained. Why would you ever think I needed that explained? This totally pointless middle chapter at least has one redeeming quality, and that's Madeline Pesh as Maya here, who is doing her absolute best to make this film interesting. As much as I was confused by Maya fighting a CGI boar for, again, no good God-given reason here, it did make her a little more badass. I will give her that. It's such a shame that she's given nothing to do here. I think in another movie, she surely would have been a standout final girl. With absolutely no memorable kills in 2 movies now, and a side character so effortlessly annoying I wanted to jump through the screen and strangle him myself, I think the Strangers franchise is doomed after this trilogy concludes, and I really don't know if any more movies are going to happen after how abysmal these have been. This one really hurt because unlike the last 4 movies, I saw a lot of potential in this one. I was really excited covering this movie, and man, I mean, what a shit show. Sadly, the new I Know What You Did Last Summer is an incoherent mess. Featuring obnoxious characters and another obvious whodunit, The Fisherman is simply not proving to be a powerful horror icon anymore with this latest installment. I was so excited to see Madeline Klein in this. I think she steals the show on Outer Banks with a character that went from like kinda shitty part of the bad guys now to the good guy, spoiler alert I guess. Easily one of the best performers on that show, clearly has so much talent, but Danica, and I'm not even exaggerating when I say this, is possibly the worst character in a horror movie all year. Madeline either screams or mumbles all of her lines here, and I didn't even catch all of them for that reason. This is such a shockingly bad performance, I needed subtitles on screen to understand 50% of her lines. It is such an unbelievably terrible performance from someone who I know has talent. It's so disappointing, man. I will admit The Fisherman gets some of his best kills here, but that simply can't excuse this movie's franchise-ruining third act. I don't necessarily hate the idea of Ray Bronson being a killer. This was actually the original idea for the sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer. This ended up getting scrapped, of course, and then we got I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, where Ray is admittedly played as a red herring. But the last time we hung out with Ray Bronson, he specifically was this loving boyfriend who was going to do everything he could to save Julie. Now, with absolutely no setup whatsoever, he's this manipulative asshole. Freddie Prinze Jr. is playing a completely different character here, and there was absolutely no steps taken to get to this point. This is not an earned finale, and it absolutely sucks and falls flat. This is a controversial situation too, a victim succumbing to trauma rather than overcoming it, and it is so not played carefully at all. The way that this movie does its twists feels like it's gloating and being like, Scream would never do this, but there's a reason that Scream would never do this. Could you imagine if Dewey became the killer in a Scream movie? The fans would revolt. It's not the question of could we do this, it's the question of should we do this. I think the writer and the director of this movie were so obsessed with making a campy slasher flick that called back to the late 90s that they threw everything else to the wayside. It results in a movie that clearly is just copying and pasting everything that was good about Scream 5 from 2022 and just applying it here very, very loosely, and just not with the same level of precision. The other thing about camp is like, you can't just write that down on a page and expect actors to play it out the same way that you envision it in your head. That's something that comes naturally, more organically from actors performing it themselves. That scene with Julie James spinning around and saying, "What are you waiting for?" A child directed that. Like, I don't know if you guys know that, but that's why that scene is so ridiculous and over the top. It's because some child won some sort of contest or whatever and was able to direct a single scene of that movie. And that was the scene. And it led to being a super big moment of the movie. And it's not anything that was written down in a script. It's because a child thought that would work. And it's ridiculous, it's over the top, and it's fun. It's super memorable as well. I'm gonna die on that hill. You can't write these things. You can't write Johnny Galecki delivering that line about "Daddy's gonna be mad" in such a weird way. Like, that works because of the weird way that he delivers them. If I said, "Daddy's gonna be mad," or if I screamed and mumbled every single one of my lines, you wouldn't even hear the goofy thing I'm trying to say. Oh my God, this movie's so frustrating. Well, this Blumhouse movie certainly delivered on its title. There definitely was a woman sitting in that yard. Some positives with this movie is that everyone here is really giving it their all with their performances, especially Okwe Okpakwassili playing the yard-sitting woman. Dude, this is such a great actress who is constantly in Blumhouse slop. Please put this person in like a good movie. She can act, and my God, she was born to play horror villains. Her performance makes this one watchable, but everything else about this movie just really falls flat. This is sadly another movie where a creepy thing is used as a metaphor for grief. Dude, I am so sick of movies like this. And just to make this so unbelievably clear, I'm not sick of grief stories. I think those work. Grief is one of the most powerful emotions that we have, and I think it's very relatable. Everyone has gone through grief in one way, shape, or form. If it's losing a loved one or just like missing something that's no longer there, that's also grief too. Everyone can relate to grief, and that's why we're constantly getting movies like this that are very uninspired. They're just using some scary thing as a metaphor for grief, but it's the approach. That's what I don't like about this movie. They've done it so many times. There's so many movies exactly like this, and I just feel like they get worse and worse every single time. The biggest problem with the approach is it just doesn't feel like the writer or the director is adding any level of personality to this. It just feels like very generic Kirkland brand grief that is on display here. This isn't offensively bad like I Know What You Did Last Summer, but it is a miss. I'm oddly apologetic towards this clear vanity project from The Weeknd, likely just because I like his music so much, but the story's bad, dude. Loosely based on some real-life events that happened with Abel Tesfaye mid-concert, Hurry Up Tomorrow is the tie-in movie to the guy's newest album release. I actually really loved the album, but the movie just feels like a pastiche of a lot of interesting things going on in horror right now, like art house cinema and Jenna Ortega dancing. It's all style and no substance in this very bizarre psychological thriller. The Weeknd can sing, man, but his acting is really rough here. I can't even believe they released this in theaters. I do like that thing he's doing with his lips though. You know, like that. I do that in front of the mirror all the time because of this movie. It's also really funny to me that Jenna Ortega goes on this like meta rants to The Weeknd while he's tied up in a bed. Like, are we doing Scream here, but with The Weeknd's music? What is going on here, man? This movie feels very egomaniacal. Like, we're just gonna make everything about The Weeknd and people are gonna love it. I don't know, man. Now I just don't really want to meet the guy. He seems really full of himself. I'm still gonna listen to Blinding Lights when I get ready in the morning, though. I'm really thinking about how I want to say this. I've seen some bad movies before where like maybe the acting is a little lackluster, the pacing is really stilted, there's just something obviously wrong about it. But Clown in a Cornfield, like there's something uniquely bad about it. There's something uniquely bad about this movie, and it makes me question if humans wrote this or software. I don't want to accuse this movie of anything, but you know what I'm trying to say with a very popular thing that's happening right now in our world? That's all I'm gonna say. Clown in a Cornfield is so devoid of human emotion or character decisions that actually make sense. I just don't even think that people wrote this. Not only does it feature a twist that is so strikingly similar to Murder on the Orient Express or Hot Fuzz, two very popular murder mystery stories, but it also has one-dimensional characters giving snooze-worthy performances across the board. It really pains me to say that, especially with Kevin Durand in the the cast, somebody who I fucking adore in everything else they've ever done. But man, it just goes to show that under the wrong direction, even the best performers can be really dull. With this movie being based on a successful series of novels, I'm just so shocked by the lack of intrigue here. This is one of the most elementary, predictable slasher films I have ever seen that lacks any sort of personality. A lot of folks have given a pass to this one, calling it gateway horror. It's not supposed to be the greatest thing you've ever seen. But dude, if this is my kids' introduction to the genre, they're never gonna be horror fans. I would much rather show them the 90s Goosebumps, which like isn't the best thing when it comes to writing, but it's so nostalgic and still very human and fun. That's great gateway horror, not whatever the fuck this slop was. After totally redeeming itself with Carmichael Manor last year, Hell House Lineage is such a thud. Throwing out the found footage angle and simple story for no good reason, Lineage feels like a lore dump with absolutely no sort of connected story throughout. This film is a mismatch of random scenes of that clown killing people in increasingly boring ways. The uninspired cinematography throughout a million different locations made me scratch my head and wonder why the filmmakers threw away everything that was so cool about the series in order to make whatever the hell this was. This feels like a case where either the filmmakers don't understand what made that original film so great, or like they just didn't want to do that anymore. Like, why else are you not making this found footage, dude? I just don't know. What really worked for me about the first Hell House movie is that it's a simple story that's done really well. You've seen a movie like the original Hell House before. It's not reinventing the wheel, but it is rolling it very well. There's some great jump scares, some super effective moments throughout. I also love the third act of Hell House, where we're coming back to that original scene where we only get little glimpses of it. Then we're learning more of like what actually went down there, and there's a little bit of a fun twist, man. Again, nothing about this movie is like 10 out of 10 standout crazy, but I loved that first one. It's a nice little hidden gem. Lineage and a lot of the other sequels don't work for me because they're trying to make this story way bigger than it needs to be. It's convoluted, exposition heavy, and devoid of scares almost entirely. Man, I just don't give a rat's ass about the history of these locations. I just want to see some idiot characters set up shop here and fucking die in gruesome ways. I'm just gonna pretend there's the original film in Carmichael Manor and like call it a day. And finally, this is the movie on the list that I think is just such a step below everything else we have talked about. War of the Worlds 2025 is one of the worst films I have ever seen in my entire life, and truly is a movie that should have just stayed on the shelf. The found footage War of the Worlds is such a piece of shit, I lost brain cells while watching it. Ice Cube plays a guy that works for our government yet consistently uses a propaganda media site to get his news. This is also just one big advertisement to come work for Amazon, and it's so condescending in the way that it glorifies its own company. The entire film almost feels like one of those little commercials in Starship Troopers, but like in real life.
People making a better tomorrow.
You'll have a great time laughing at how dumb this movie is, but it's also kind of scary and dystopian that this movie even exists in the first place. Sadly, this was one of the first movies I watched when I moved into my new apartment, and I have kind of a funny story to tell about this because I think I might have pissed off the neighbors. There's a scene like at the beginning of the third act of this movie where I'm already like, I've lost any interest I have in this movie. I'm just kind of laughing. We're just, me and my buddy Connor, we're making jokes going back and forth. And we have this character that we were introduced to. There's a little bit of a twist that the kid, the guy's son, his kid or whatever, is this disruptor, this hacker character. And he has all of these hacker friends with these crazy names. One in particular is named Starfire. The aliens find the locations of all of his hacker friends and they start like blowing up their houses, and this is shown to us through like video footage, and this like shitty VFX explosion goes over the screen while they're flailing all over the place. Like here, I'll do it right now. That's exactly what it looks like. And when Starfire goes out in particular, you get like just a really like he does that and like VFX explosion, and then the kid, the disruptor kid, just yells Starfire like that. Dude, it's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. We rewound it 3 times and I was laughing so hard that I started hearing knocking on the wall of the apartment. Like our neighbors were like telling us to shut up. You know, as bad as this movie was, I have not laughed so hard at a film maybe all year. So maybe this was actually my favorite movie of 2025. I don't know. I'm so sorry if any of your favorites from this year were on today's list, but which movies from 2025 disappointed you? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. Please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.